Hello everyone, and thank you yet again, Devon, for having me back. I'm really excited about these lists, especially for Nova, and I hope you guys are enjoying it. Listen, since our last video, we had a few questions from a couple of you guys, and I thought I'd take a quick moment to go through those and answer them via video rather than just texting an answer and tagging it underneath your question. Anyway, the first question comes from Pascal Wibb, and his question is regarding black dragons. Now, that's an upgrade for the Easterlings, and he was questioning whether we should upgrade the pikemen to black dragons, which would give them a strength 4, which would be a real benefit when it comes to the fight. Now, that's a very good idea. That's brilliant. I love it. The only thing you need to be careful of is that you don't get over enthusiastic and put too many black dragons and start giving them pikes in the back, because what you're going to do is you're going to start detracting from the horde, the numbers that you want. And later on in the video I'll talk about numbers. But yeah, fantastic, Pascal. Yeah, great reasoning. Nicely done. Okay, my next question was from Sebastian McCormick, and he was talking about a non-Nova list. He was talking about 700 points Easterling and whether a shade could be put with them and whether it would be beneficial or how would that fit. Now, here in the UK, we generally, well, I personally build an army at 600 and then I detract from it or I add to it depending on the points of the tournament or the comp I'm going to. So what I'd suggest is look at building a 600 point Easterling army, and then you have that extra spare 100 points. Shade will fit beautifully into that. Shades are amazing. For those who don't know, they just reduce the fight of everyone within a radius of them. Don't even have to be in base contact. Nasty little things. But in order to make them viable, you suggested possibly the pike block, because they'd really buff that. But then they're at the back and they will at some point become vulnerable and susceptible, so just watch out for that. But yeah, a shade, lovely model. Just got one recently myself. Haven't used it in game yet, but I've seen it being used against me devastatingly. Right, I hope that helps, Sebastian. You did ask also about barrow whites. Now, when I face my opponent on the table, it doesn't really matter what troops I have. I start doing risk assessments on his troops, and if I'm seeing certain heroes, or if I'm seeing something like a barrow white, it gets my hackles up. I get a bit nervous. I start having to plan how I can deal with that. The last thing I need is my best character getting paralyzed and failing the will roll to dispel it, etc. It's a great way of trying to sap will from people as well, because you roll a 4, 5 or 6, they've got to roll a couple of dice to get there, possibly even sapping some of their might. So yeah, barrow whites are great as well. But look at the points of them. And going back to your earlier question regarding shades, look at their points as well. And then you look at points for some of the other nasty little additions you can add to an army, and before you know it, you've got 7 models in an 800 point army, and you've got no troops and you've got no real potential. So barrow whites would be fantastic. I've got 2 of them now myself. Again, haven't used them, nor have I seen them being used overly competitively, but yeah, you might be able to pull something out of the hat with those. So yeah, thanks very much yet again, Sebastian, for that question. Now we'll quickly move on, because the whole video is about a question from Jeremy Smith, and he asked me two things. One, he said, make me an army worthy of Mordor. Now, pictorially, I'd have given you an Isengard army. Literally, I have just done up a couple of Mordor Army lists. The first one is in response to a question from Jacob Hall regarding fell beasts. Now, fell beasts are very, very good in knowledgeable hands, because they are very, very glass hammer. As a Felbeast player, and after playing Felbeast quite a lot, you can get very, very unlucky with a dice roll and suddenly everything unravels and it's all done. They're not a certain win. They're more of a let's make the game that we're playing into advanced chess. You've got to do a lot of thinking, a lot of synergies. But check out that list anyway. By all means, that is one Mordor list that I'd suggest for 800 points. But I've done up another one for you, and this is more troops. I've done this list up not because it is going to be an extremely competitive winning list, but this list will upset a lot of the top players, and it's easier to play, in my opinion, than a Felbeast list or an all-hero list, an all-good hero list. So the whole idea behind this list was to make it easy to play, get good results, and cause some upsets among some of the high table focused players, so you can get a lot out of this. Anyway, let me crack on. I thought about a general, and I thought, well, if you got a Mordor list, you might as well have a Felbeast. And I thought a very, very durable Felbeast rider is the Undyne. Got loads of pluses for the Undyne there. Use it myself as a general on a regular basis, and would use it in the Felbeast list as a general as well. So I'd start with the Undyne on a Felbeast because you've got some brutal power attacks, you've got fantastic mobility, as well as longevity. Straight away on top of that, I threw in a Mordor Troll. Fight 7, Strength 7, Defense 7. That's going to upset some of your opponents, most definitely. I then went for what I feel. Now, I usually don't use shamans because I find that in the circumstances of using the armies I've used, it's easy to get at them. It's easy to focus on them and take them out of the picture, or frighten my opponent enough that they have to keep them back a bit. So I don't tend to go for shamans. But Kardash, oh my goodness gracious me, what a character. This character being able to sacrifice not only himself to give quite a few will back to ring rates if they're within the locale, but can sacrifice orc models around him to boost his own will. It'll never go above his starting 3 will, but he gets a D3 each time he sacrifices a model. That, in a sense, means that he can just about maintain fury throughout the game. Obviously, if he's sapped wills, etc., or he has to use the present will he has to try and negate another spell being aimed at him, he will be reduced to 0, fury will end. But his ability means he can sacrifice an orc model within 6 inches before the priority stage, gets his will back, or at least up to 3 will back potentially, and then in his movement phase comes along, casts fury again. Wow! You can't get this guy down. This is just fury on tap. And with the rest of the army, this is very, very important, because generally Mordor, other than the main characters, tend to have low courage. So fury's a must, and also endgame. Right, so after Kardash, I then went for the Mordor Taskmaster. Taskmaster really helping to buff. Doing a lot of buffs here, giving great chance for all the other characters to get their might back, or to maintain their might, etc. So really, really good model. So what have I done? I've got 2 attacking models, I've got 2 buff models, and just quickly going through the rest, I also put in an orc captain with a shield. I put the shield in because I had the points. I usually put in naked orc captains, and I just use them for mobility. They call heroic marches, they call heroic moves. They're like, in a sense, my drum. They end up having your 2 attacks, etc. I personally think that they're like miniature berserkers in that respect, with the 2 might to use to get the troops moving. But I threw in that. Now, the rest of the army is 16 Blackguard. Now, I'm not going to detail how I spread them. Well, I have spread them on. I'll put the listing up. I can quickly crack through here. But I'll just tell you what else I had. I put Blackguard because they have fantastic defense. Plus strength 5. Wow. That is just amazing. So, strength 5, defense 6, fight 4. Obviously they're not beating elves, but if they come up against monsters or dwarfs on defense 7, strength 5, they're hitting them on 5s. That's a bonus. They're hitting ring rates on 6s. So again, a very, very good group. Slightly expensive, but I put in 16 because they are going to be the troops that will block any serious hard-hitting cavalry or monster attacks coming in. They're not going to get hurled all over the place because you're going to need 6s on all the models other than the hurled one to do any wounds. So that's amazing. That's good. On top of that, then I threw in 2 spiders. Why did I put in 2 spiders? Well, because 2 of the scenarios need mobility. You're looking at, I believe, sabotage, and you're also looking at a weapon of the enemy. Now, you could give a spider, which has low defense, the duel. His ability, or its ability, should I say, to get over terrain, to get just ignore terrain, over buildings, woods, etc., is tremendous, and his speed of 10 inches is literally as the crow flies, and without a doubt I think that's great. Also, the starting game you have in, I think it's sabotage, where you have to kill 2 or 3 objectives on your opponent's side. The spiders can get in there quite quickly, so a real good plus. On top of that, then I put in 5 Morannon orcs with spear and 7 Morannon orcs with shields. So I've got a splattering of spears on the back to support the Blackguard, and I've got the Morannon with shield, again defense 6, so win-win situation here. They're going to be tough to kill from most models, most armies. And then I put in 7 Orc Trackers, and they are in Kardash's warband. And the reason they're there is they have bows. So I've got 7 cheeky shots. But they're also cheap orcs that can be killed by Kardash to increase his will. So they are the sacrificial lambs with a few bows. Cheeky bow, you never know what you get with a cheeky shot. But their main purpose is to feed Kardash throughout the game. Okay, so listing down through the army. I'll put the army list up for you now. And so we have, starting off, the Undying with a Mordor Troll, with a Giant Spider, and with 8 Blackguards of Barad-dûr. They've got hand weapon, heavy armor, shield. Then we have Kardash the Firecaller. We have 7 Orc Trackers, and we have 5 Morannon orcs with spears. I put the spears back there because I wanted to support, keep Kardash at the back. He also has a spear, by the way. So we've got quite a bit of supporting going on there. And then the Orc Trackers, the bows, well, you always want to put the bows behind the front line so they get cheeky, sneaky shots. Some of the Orc Trackers, depending on what you're looking at, could leg it off to get secondary objectives, and you could still have your core army close to the centre. Your Mordor Troll, as I said earlier in the first case, is primarily a frightening model, as in he's going to give your opponent some worries. It's going to take some time out to think about how to deal with that, but also he's a high point model, so in some of the scenarios on an objective, his points would mean that your opponent will have a lot more need to have a lot more troops there to equal that. I then went on with the Orc Taskmaster, and with the Orc Taskmaster I just gave him 6 Morannon orcs with shield, and then lastly I have the Orc Captain with shield, and then I have a spider, and I've got 8 Blackguard or Barrador. Now that comes up to 790. So what I did is I actually threw in another Moran and Orc with a spear, etc. So I think it comes up to 798. Now you can swap around. You give some of those guys, some of the spear guys, a shield, etc. So that's the army list. Now, without going into more about the army, what I'd like to do now is answer Jeremy's second question, which will tie into this. He said, what are the 3 most important aspects of a Nova army list? And he set out a couple of his examples, but what I've written down is, I said, looking at the scenarios, a general killer. So you need something that will kill generals. The Undyne, the Mordor Troll, possibly even Kardash with a quick spell, his fireball spell, doing strength 6. You could look at a spider coming in from the back and causing a bit of damage there. Plus you've got strong troops. So, but you've got the Mordor Troll and you've got the Undyne potentially as the general killer. The next thing is large troop killers, because you are going to get break points for certain scenarios. So you want things to get in. So the hurl from the Mordor Troll, the hurl from the Undyne, again, that will give you large troop killers. And then the last one is high value models. Now, you start putting the Mordor Troll on an objective, you put the Undyne on an objective, you put some spiders on the objective, even Blackguard on the objectives. They are high point models. There's a fourth thing, but this is, which this army does fill, because I believe this army total of 41 models, 42 models in it per se, is numbers. In order to kill the general, you usually have to get through a lot of numbers. In order to break an army, the more numbers they are, it's harder. In order to ensure getting the secondary objectives, numbers again, always a great thing. So, to counter most of the army lists I'm putting out, I would suggest numbers. Numbers are kind of like the buff, the debuff, the things that slows down the aggressive players. And this army has all those. So, Jeremy, I hope that's helpful. I look forward to seeing you at Nova. And if you do decide to take this army, it'd be interesting to play you. Personally, I think that this army could cause me a lot of grief, and cause a lot of other people a lot of grief, if you play it right. And that is keeping the Blackguard close, keeping Kardash and the Taskmaster together practically, and watching out for the objectives. Okay, listen, this has been great, and I hope to speak to you soon. Okay, bye for now.